Quick game. I'll show you 5 things and you tell me which ones are cash. A $20 bill in the drawer, a customer's check you haven't deposited yet, a 90-day treasury bill, a 3-year certificate of deposit, an IOU your coworker scribbled on a napkin. Most people get at least 2 of these wrong because cash on a balance sheet is not just the bills in your wallet. Some things that look like cash aren't, and some things that don't look like cash absolutely are. Tonight, we draw the exact line. What counts as cash, what counts as a cash equivalent, and what gets kicked out entirely. Get this right, and you'll never misclassify the most important number on the balance sheet. Let's sort. So what actually is cash? Here's the one test that settles everything. Cash is anything you can spend right now, at full value, with no restrictions and no waiting. If you can hand it over today to pay a bill, it's cash. That splits into 2 neat buckets. Bucket 1, cash on hand, the physical money and near money sitting in your building. Bucket 2, cash in banks, the money in accounts you can draw on immediately. If it fails the test, if it's locked up, not due yet, or can't be spent today, it drops out of cash. Keep that test in your head as we sort. Spendable today, no strings. Bucket 1, cash on hand, the money physically in your possession. Your petty cash fund from part 1, that's cash. Coins in the till, cash. Paper currency in the safe, cash. And here's the first surprise that trips students up. Undeposited customer checks. Checks you've received but haven't taken to the bank yet. Those count as cash too, because you can deposit and spend them at full value. Even checks you've written but not yet mailed to a supplier are still your cash. The money hasn't left, so it belongs to you until that envelope goes out. If it's spendable money sitting in your building on hand, it's cash. Bucket 2, cash in banks. Money in accounts you can draw on today. Your checking account, obviously, cash. Your savings account, also cash. You can pull it whenever. One more that shows up on exams. Compensating balances that are not legally restricted. A compensating balance is a minimum the bank asks you to keep, but if you're not legally forced to leave it there, you can still spend it, so it stays in cash. The theme never changes. If you can get to it and spend it today at full value, it's cash. Now, the flip side. Some investments are so close to cash, we treat them almost the same. Those are cash equivalents. Cash equivalents are the runners-up. Investments so safe and so short, they're basically cash with a tiny bit of interest. 2 rules define them, and both must be true. Rule 1, low risk, highly liquid, safe investments, not risky stocks. Rule 2, and this is the one everyone misses, an original maturity of 3 months or less measured from the day you acquired it, not 3 months from today. That single word, original, is the whole trap. So what actually qualifies? Treasury bills, short-term government debt, the safest thing there is. Commercial paper, short-term corporate IOUs from strong companies. Money market funds, pools of these short, safe instruments, and a bond you buy with under 3 months left to run. That qualifies too. Notice the pattern, government-backed or top tier, and maturing almost immediately. But watch what happens when we change just one detail about that bond. Here's the classic exam trap, and the rule that cracks it. Original maturity is measured from the day you acquire the investment, not from the day it was issued. Picture the very same bond, sitting 2 months from maturity today, in 2 different hands. In the first case, you bought it years ago, and you've been holding it, so when you acquired it, it had about 10 years left to run. Its maturity from your purchase date is long, so it is not a cash equivalent, it's just an investment. In the second case, you buy that same bond today, with only 2 months left until it matures. Now the time from your purchase to maturity is 2 months. Under 3, so it absolutely qualifies as a cash equivalent. Same 2 months on the calendar, opposite answers, and the only thing that changed is when you bought it. So yes, buying near the finish line does count. What disqualifies a bond is having held it since it had years to run. Now the imposters, the things that look like cash but get kicked off the cash line. First, certificates of deposit, CDs. Your money is locked in for a fixed term. You can't spend it today, so it's out. Second, legally restricted deposits, money you're required to set aside, reported as a separate asset. Third, a bond sinking fund, cash committed to repay bonds later, not available. Fourth, restricted cash of any kind, any cash you're not free to use. And it's important enough that we'll give it its own slide in just a minute. Then the broken promises, an NSF check that already bounced. There's no money behind it, so it goes back to a receivable. A post-dated check, dated in the future, you can't cash it until that date arrives. And an IOU, someone's written promise to pay. That's a receivable, never cash. The common thread across all 7, a lock, a delay, or a broken promise, and it leaves the cash line. So how does it all land on the financial statements? Cash and cash equivalents are reported together as one single line at the very top of current assets because they're so similar in nature. Cash is cash. A cash equivalent is technically a tiny investment, but it's so close we group them. Everything we kicked out, the CDs, the restricted deposits, the sinking fund, the receivables from IOUs and NSF checks, those get reported on their own lines, as investments or receivables, wherever they belong. One clean cash and cash equivalents line up top, and every imposter sitting somewhere else. That's reporting cash, done right. One item from that list deserves its own moment. Restricted cash. Restricted cash is money you do have, but you're not free to spend. It's set aside for a specific purpose. Maybe it's a compensating balance you're legally required to keep, cash you've pledged as collateral, or a sinking fund building up to repay a bond. Because you can't touch it for everyday operations, it never rides on the cash and cash equivalents line. It gets its own line, called restricted cash. And here's how you place it on the balance sheet. If the restriction lifts within 1 year, you report it under current assets, right below cash and cash equivalents. If it's tied up longer than a year, it drops down into non-current, long-term assets. Same dollars, the shelf just depends on when you'll finally get to use them. Your turn. Pause and sort each item into cash, cash equivalent, or neither. 1. $300 of coins and currency in the safe. 2. A 60-day treasury bill the company just bought. 3. A 5-year bond bought years ago, now maturing next month. 4. A post-dated check from a customer, dated for next week. 5. A savings account balance. Work all 5, then hit play. Here's the answer. Coins and currency. Cash, spendable today. The 60-day treasury bill just bought. Cash equivalent, safe, and originally under 3 months. The 5-year bond maturing next month, neither. Its original maturity was 5 years, so it's an investment. That's the trap. The post-dated check, neither. You can't cash it yet. The savings account, cash. 5 for 5? You can classify anything now. Screenshot this, the whole cash line on one card. The one test. Spendable today, full value, no strings. Cash, petty cash, coins, currency, checking and savings, undeposited checks, unmailed checks, unrestricted compensating balances. Cash equivalents, low risk and original maturity 3 months or less. T-bills, commercial paper, money market funds, a bond bought with under 3 months to run. Not cash, CDs, restricted or legally restricted deposits, bond sinking funds, NSF checks, post-dated checks, IOUs, and any bond whose original maturity was longer than 3 months. Report cash and cash equivalents as one line up top. Pause, screenshot, keep it for the exam. And that's part 3 of the cash chapter in the bag. Across these 3 parts, you learn to run a petty cash fund, reconcile a bank account to the dollar, and classify exactly what counts as cash. But we are not done with cash yet, not by a long shot. Coming up next, in part 4, we take on fraud and internal control, the fraud triangle, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, and the principles companies use to stop theft before it ever happens. Then in part 5, we put it all to work, applying internal control directly to cash, the #1 target for fraud in any business. These are 2 of the most practical, most tested topics in the whole course, so you do not want to miss them. If any part lost you, tell me exactly where in the comments. I read and reply to every single one. No dumb questions in this classroom. Hit like and subscribe so part 4 lands right in your feed, follow on X at Applied Analyst, and grab the free exercises and full notes at appliedanalyst.com. No email wall. I'll see you in part 4.